Hello and welcome to the Dash Force Free Amigos podcast. This is episode 52, and there's
Wow.
52 weeks in a year. So that means it's the 1 year anniversary of the Dash Force Free Amigos
Wow.
podcast. Now, you may realize something's a bit different because I'm normally joined by my two other fellow amigos. I've got Brian with me today. How's it going, Brian?
Excellent. Excellent.
But my other amigo and partner in crime, Joel Valenzuela, is actually at the Voice and Exit festival representing Dash with Ben Swan and all that good stuff, sending people up with Dash wallets. So hopefully he's going to join us live from the event, maybe halfway through the podcast towards the end, and we can just find out some of the stuff that's been going on there on the ground. But really, the highlight of today's show is our special guest of honor, which is the Dash Core Group CFO, Glenn Austin. How's it going, Austin?
It's going great. How are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. So, Glenn, right, I feel like I should give you a little introduction just for people watching. So, hopefully this is correct. I pulled it directly off the press release after you first joined. So, for those watching that are unfamiliar with Glenn, hopefully this will bring you up to speed. So, Glenn possesses an AB in economics from Harvard and an MBA in finance and management from Columbia Business School. Very impressive.
Wow.
He has spent most of the past 20 years in the financial services industry, starting as an associate at Citigroup before moving on to Morgan Stanley. After advancing to the role of vice president at Morgan Stanley Investment Management, Glenn took on a director role at UBS. Most recently, he held a number of senior leadership positions at Chain IQ, a consulting firm spun out of UBS. So that only leaves one question, Brian, to ask. So, and I know you're thinking it, I'm thinking it, I know the people watching are thinking it. Glenn, what made you turn from paper pusher to crypto lover?
So that's a really good question. I would say in general, the people who've gotten involved in crypto fall in a number of camps. And I don't want to stereotype or generalize, but I would say hardcore cryptographers, so really people into computer science, got into crypto early. Another one is kind of the camp of the libertarians. Another one is, as you kind of look at the emerging markets, it's people that don't view money as this permanent feature in their life. And I would say, people from Argentina or Venezuela. So a lot of people don't know this about me, but I'm actually Ukrainian. I was born in Ukraine. And in the early 90s, Ukraine had experienced a huge currency crisis where, they replaced the ruble with a new currency called karbovanets. And that currency has experienced insane inflation rates. So, they had $5, $10, and $100 bills in 1993. In 2 years, in 1995, there were $1 million bills and $100,000 bills. So the inflation was, kind of as high as I would say Germany in the, late 1918 or early 1920s. So that's to say, my background was growing up in those emerging markets and really seeing that currency is something that's could be flexible. It's not something that's permanent. And that kind of led me to want to major in economics at Harvard. And then I ended up working financial services for 20 years. But always in the back of my mind, I was interested in economic theory in general and, got interested in Bitcoin, I would say about 5 years ago. And then got interested in Dash and what the project is, I would say at the end of 2016, beginning of 2017. Reached out to Ryan, had a number of conversations with him, met a couple of core team members around this time last year in Consensus. And then, just kept volunteering and saying, listen, I would love to join Dash core team in some capacity or other. I have a finance background. And finally, when they launched a search for CFO, I was lucky enough to get selected. So it's been an excellent opportunity, but hopefully that kind of gives you a little bit of my background.
Yeah, a fourth group that I'd identified a while back on the Bitcoin Talk forums was the Silk Road crowd. I don't know if they're, still a lot of people come that avenue, but I know back in the day there was a lot that came from that kind of world as well.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So this is interesting. So you obviously saw the advertisement for the job position, right? For the CFO position. and you didn't own Dash at the time. You heard of the project, but you wanted to learn more about it, right? Which is actually quite a common route for some of the core team, and people went into Dash because with the master nodes and the two-tier system and everything else, without getting too technical, there is a lot to learn, right? There is a bit of a learning curve.
Yes.
So, but you'd already been open to alternative currencies and the crypto world. I guess being in the financial industry, it's kind of hard to ignore, right?
Yeah, it is a bit hard to ignore. And I got involved in Bitcoin, I would say 4 years ago, literally a very nominal amount. But then I live in New York City, so it was really difficult to access Dash. So figuring out how to do that, in early 2007 was a challenge, but, it forced me to kind of learn more about Dash. And the more I learned, further down that rabbit hole I fell, the more interesting it was. And, particularly kind of everything around the governance model and how the treasury works, that really warmed me up to Dash. And, great. It's been great.
Yeah, because you came in at a real hour of need within Dash, because Brian Taylor, our CEO at Dash, Dash Core Group, he was wearing like 3 hats at the time, manager. And I imagine when you came in, you kind of got really thrown into the deep end, because not only have you got to learn all these concepts with the treasury, the governance, everything else, you kind of like, here's all your job role and your positions, here's all the stuff on the desk. It's like, wow, where do I even begin? So it must have been quite a daunting experience, because you've got so much responsibility.
Yeah, it was an interesting experience in that, as you mentioned, Ryan was CFO, CEO, and then at one time also held a business development role, right? Yep. So they got Bradley on board to alleviate some of that pain in December. And then when I onboarded, I actually ended up spending a week with Ryan in Arizona. And that was just literally nonstop, just getting trained from, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. And in the beginning, it was a bit difficult, to be honest, in terms of, I'm actually slowing him down, right? He has calls to make, he has like some work to do, right? And I'm there trying to actually learn the ropes exactly of how he's managing some of these things. Or for me, to be honest, actually submitting a proposal from the core wallet was a slightly steep learning curve.
Oh, wow.
It's not as straightforward as it seems in terms of creating all the governance objects and everything. So I actually had to write it down, the entire process. Now that I've done, 4 or 5 of them, I'm very comfortable with it. But, in the beginning, when you kind of join a new role, everything is new. You have to set everything and understand it from a high level, then set out what your goals are going to be going forward. And then, kind of the middle, what do you need in order to achieve it? So,
yeah.
So far, though, and I'm glad I was able to kind of alleviate a lot of, the workload on Ryan's plate and let him focus on more of the CEO role.
Yeah. So you're submitting everything through the core wallet rather than Dash Central?
No. So I'm submitting it from the core wallet into Dash Central. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some people do it from the core wallet. I've never understood exactly how to do it. I know it can be done, but yeah, that's pretty complex.
Okay.
Yeah. So you've actually got a lot in common with Brian, Glenn, because Brian cooks the books for Dashforce, and essentially he manages the payroll. He's the treasurer for Dashforce, right? And I mean, we've got a team close to 20, but you've got 60 full-time now and a few part-timers as well. And managing payrolls, Brian sweats a lot when he sees that price going up and down, because you've got commitments to pay, right? Within Dashforce, we all get paid in Dash, but obviously I know there's some people in core that, because they've got mortgages, commitments, families, everything else, they need dollar denominations, or actually they're all around the world, right?
Right.
So do you feel pressure on that? Has that, because that's not normal coming from your industry into this. This is a very unique environment for you. Do you just want to talk about that for a sec?
So everyone at Dash Core Group also gets paid. It's just pegged, right, to the dollar or the euro or whatever. So let's say, someone has a salary of $20,000 a year. That's what their salary would be, and we'd then pay out the equivalent in Dash. So yeah, I would say the first week of every month is really busy for me. I try to not clear my schedule, right? Not take any meetings. And then, since I'm one person right now on the finance team, I kind of have to stay focused and make sure all those payments go out, everything is accurate. And, like you mentioned, people are working, people are very passionate, they're putting in really long hours on this project. I do feel the responsibility of making sure they get paid in a timely manner to meet their obligations as well.
Are you using private send with when you're sending this stuff out, or no?
No.
Much easier that way.
They can trust Glenn. He's good for it. He's got access to all the funds. He's the good guy.
Then going forward, I will be hiring a senior accountant as well to help, with some of the payments to vendors, some of the payroll perhaps, and then also with, obviously we have to work with tax accountants and tax law firm, so they'll probably help out there. And also, just putting together a formalized budget and forecast within Dash Core Group is important. And just refining whatever Ryan had in place as well. We're looking to do that. So, we'll probably have a job posting, unless it's already out there, about a senior accountant.
Well, I hadn't heard that, so that's breaking news. You heard it here on the podcast. So I'm guessing you spoke to Kelly, HR. This is all the wheels are in motion, right? So, wow, another hire. And this would be another full-time position, I presume. So keep on scaling, keep that Dash trainer moving, right?
Exactly. And, whoever is interested in joining Dash Core Group as a senior accountant, feel free to send in your resume. So.
Well, I actually did an accounting technician diploma. So,
okay.
So more bookkeeping style, but I mean, that was a good, I don't want to give my age away. It was a long time ago. But, don't worry, Brian, your job's safe.
So everybody's paid in Dash. You said I thought that some people were paid through fiat somehow, but you're saying everybody's paid in Dash, huh?
No, so everyone is paid in Dash. The amount they're paid in Dash is pegged to the fiat.
Right.
I think that's the component. But going forward, people will start getting paid in fiat, right? So right now, everybody's a subcontractor. We're now offering certain people full-time employment. And as part of that, they'll get benefits, which is great, right? You take your kid or you go to, the doctor that doesn't have to come out of pocket. Like finally, people will have health insurance or the option of getting it, right? So that's exciting. And then their salaries will also be coming through this professional employment organization that's been set up. So they'll be getting paid in fiat.
Do y'all have a target for when the health insurance and stuff like that's going to be?
So I think it's being done in waves, and the initial wave of people will be on board, I believe, next month. So yeah, we're moving pretty aggressively, and I think it'll be over a period of the next 3-4 months or 5 months. There are certain countries.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult.
So
everywhere, right? Internationally,
exactly.
It's going to
be right. We're decentralized, right? So we're distributed around the globe. So it's really determining, who wants to join and what criteria we're using for having them join. And then so from my perspective, from the CFO's perspective, I'll bump up our run rate a little bit in terms of compensation, right? But most firms these days offer benefits, so that's yet another thing that we can do to kind of retain the talent that we could.
So, so I'm just thinking, I'm still thinking about that payroll thing, Brian. So, do you have an agreement with the guys? I mean, if it is like hush hush, top secret, you don't have to talk about it. But I mean, do you have like an agreement that will because you say it's pegged to the price, so you must have a particular day in the month to say like this day in the month we'll look at the US dollar amount then, and then we'll stick to that. Otherwise, the price is up one day and it's not. So from month to month, whether they're paid at the beginning of the month, at the end of the month, they're left guessing a little bit. You know where I'm coming from? I don't know if that's going to interest our viewers, but I'm just kind of fascinated by that.
I'm interested in it. Yeah, it's very interesting to me. Yeah.
No, so it does fluctuate, right? So apparently before I joined, there had been discussions about doing it exactly, the second day of the month or whatever, but there's always volatility, right? So if you get paid in Dash, let's say on the 3rd of the month, and the next day the price of Dash went up, most people are like, oh, I got lucky, right? And then if the price of Dash goes down, it was, oh, Glenn Austin, he's the guy who messed up the timing, right? So there's a little bit of that lose-lose from my perspective. But overall, I think people have gotten used to it already. They've realized that, listen, has nothing to do with when you set the price, and everyone's excited about holding Dash. They believe in it long term. So I think most people, say, oh, well, if it fluctuates 5% day to day, and I'm a long-term holder, listen, I'm fine with that. I'm probably getting in cheaply. And if you're not, listen, you can easily convert Dash into your fiat, right? So I immediately send a notification that payment is made. So that's kind of transparency about the payment.
Is everybody getting paid the same day? As soon as the super block, or after the super block, everybody gets paid on the same?
It's within a certain period of time, because I have to push them all through. So it's really limited by my capacity to process.
And how do you what do you use to convert? I use like CoinGecko to do the
so
Dash.
I use CoinMarketCap, and then just because it's an aggregation of all the various prices, and then we would, in the past when Korea exchanges were trading at a premium, we'd strip that away. And now that that's no longer the case, we don't adjust for that. But we always keep an eye out for outliers, just to make sure that the price is representative of the actual price.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, I'm sure you've been asked this before, but there's probably people dying to know, especially as you had 20 years in the financial industry, Citigroup, Morgan Stanley, UBS. I mean, there's some pretty big players. So over that time, you must have made a lot of work friends and people around you. Switching lanes like this, have you received any pushback? There must have been some raised eyebrows like, Glenn, what are you doing?
It really was generational, I would say, right? So it's interesting. The CEO I worked with closely was very supportive of the decision, even though he didn't really know much about cryptocurrency. I would say his peers raised eyebrow, right? So they were like, oh, I don't know about this cryptocurrency thing. Sounds like a fad, right? The folks, I would say, over between 30 and 40 were like, oh, I'm aware of cryptocurrency. That's an interesting move. I feel neutral about that. And then I would say everyone under 30 was like, oh my God, this is amazing. This sounds so great. And really showed so much enthusiasm, and probably, hadn't talked to that generation as much as I did in that 1-2 weeks when I was actually leaving the firm, right? So they were all like gung-ho about it. So it was really interesting to kind of see that, because I hadn't realized it really was that generational. So it only further solidified for me that, listen, this is the future, right? Anyone between the age of 20 and 30 working in financial services already knows about this industry. It's only going to grow going forward. Right?
Where was the last place you were at?
So the last place I was at was Chain IQ. It actually has nothing to do with blockchain. It's basically a group that got spun out of UBS that did consulting services back to UBS.
So you was at Consensus recently, right?
I was, yes. Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of this week, correct.
So we saw some footage for some YouTubers, but can you just give us some feedback? Like, how was it? Because that was obviously your first time on a booth at an event, right? Mm-hmm. Did you get to meet anyone there? Was there any contacts? Was video interviews? Spill the beans.
So the first thing I would say was that, on Monday morning when we went to register, it took a really long time to register. It was a mob, right? So I think I stood in line probably for an hour. Wow. And I think I cut the last quarter of the line just because, Dash had a booth. We were sponsors. So we got to cut in front of the people who were just attending. But again, it was an hour line just to get to that stage where I can skip that last part of the line. And that Monday, it was high energy, a lot of projects out there, a lot of people coming by the Dash booth. So that was great. We were giving out these cool T-shirts, some other merchandise as well. And yeah, it was interesting from my perspective. It was interesting for me to talk to a lot of the institutional investors and some of the asset management firms that were interested in Dash and kind of wanted to consider it from an investment perspective. So that was interesting, just given my traditional finance background and kind of being able to speak a common language with them. But overall, it was people from all walks of life. And then
the booth looked great.
Yeah, no, the booth was professionally set up. It looked great, and it was.
Yeah, that new logo's growing on me. I wasn't sure at first, but it really looked good. It did.
Yeah, I agree.
So there was something that came out that event which was unexpected, which we're still trying to put the piece of the puzzle together, because there's lots of tweets coming out about rewards.com, because next to the booth, I believe there was a CEO there. So people started posting pictures, but like we haven't had like a press release or anything yet. So like we're all left guessing. I mean, we've been to the website, but I'm guessing at some point you would have spoken to the CEO at rewards.com. Were people interested in it? Can you tell us just a little bit about it? I know that's not your domain, but
no, people were interested. They were coming up. It was, they were aware of what rewards.com was, and they, in their mind, didn't associate it at all with anything in terms of cryptocurrency or even Dash, right? So it was like, that was interesting. I'm going to do a little segue into what else was interesting. A lot of people actually came by and said, I saw Dash on an airline commercial. Yes. So there were a lot of people who did that. And that really was like, when you see a banner ad, I think online with Dash, you kind of expect it. But it was like, it blew them away to see something in the old school world where you have now Dash, right? So I think rewards.com was similar in that way, where people were aware of it, but they wouldn't marry the concept of, cryptocurrency with that. So that was really exciting as well, kind of seeing people react to that. But
yeah, that's one of my favorite ones. I hope they come back. I know that they didn't pass it last time. They had a pretty big ask. The budget was full, but hopefully they come back. There's plenty of room in the budget this time because, I really like that one too. That's exciting.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Yeah, I've seen that one too, and I thought it was excellent. But a lot of people came by, like people who didn't even know necessarily what Dash was, and they were like, we saw this ad in the real world, right? So that was kind of interesting. And I think the announcement with rewards will be coming at some point next week or the following week. So stay tuned.
Yeah, I imagine it's difficult because, you've got the drama of consensus. And I know there was the Twitter, people complaining, like people paying like $3,000 for a ticket. And there are lots of people complaining. There was lots of mixed reviews, but I'm guessing it's New York. So it's all going to be suits and stuff anyway. I mean, I'm guessing that's your arena, right? From your investment and financial background, there's going to be a lot of people talking about these topics where other probably cryptocurrency, blockchain ones are going to be a lot more fanboy dominated, right? Where
it was interesting to see consensus this year where there weren't as many suits as I thought there would be, actually. So it was, that was also interesting. So this was my first year of consensus, but I did ask some of the members of the team that were there last year, and they said it was a lot more suit dominated last year. And this year, really, it was all people from all walks of life, really, that were interested in cryptocurrency. So I found that to be interesting as well,
Do we know what the turnout from last year to this year? I know it was huge, but do we know the different numbers?
8,000 people.
This year, yeah. What was it last year? Do we know?
I think it was less than half than that.
Wow.
So it dramatically went up. They just seem to be completely unprepared. People were posting pictures on Twitter that they had to eat their food in the toilet because there was no space anywhere. And obviously, as Glenn said, in terms of organization, people queuing up just to get the tickets. It looked like a scene from a zombie apocalypse movie. It was just like, so yeah. Okay. What about, did you actually get any time to walk away from the booth and check out some of the other booths and things that are going on? Did anything catch your eye? Have any interesting conversations?
Most of the time I actually spent at the Dash booth. I got to sit in on a couple of talks that were interesting. I got to, I checked out the various hardware wallets, looked at a couple of projects as well. There's some interesting stuff there, but really the focus there was for me to kind of add value by educating people as to what Dash is, to talking about kind of the latest of what's going on within Dash. So it was interesting to see it was a very wide spectrum of people that were approaching our booth. Some of them had no clue what Dash was, which was kind of surprising because how do you get to consensus and not ever heard of Dash? Others, and this was interesting too, knew what Dash was, but when they approached our booth, the two concepts hadn't clicked yet. So that was interesting to see as well. I don't know if it had to do with the logo change or whatever the case may be. It was interesting. They were like, "What's Dash?" And I was like, "Oh, Dash. Well, we're a fork off of Bitcoin in 2014." And they were like, "Oh, of course, Dash." But they didn't make the connection initially. So that was interesting to see as well.
That's a bit bizarre. Yeah, but it's interesting to know though. Maybe it was just the logo change where it's so subtle.
Right.
It's not that drastically different, but yeah, I can see where you're coming from.
Yeah, and then there were others who came up and said, "Listen, I've been a huge fan of Dash since 2014, 2015. Just talk to us about all the latest things going on within Dash, and just members of the community as well." So it was really interesting, kind of meeting those people in person as well.
Interesting. Was there many video interviews conducted? Because I think you had like 5 tickets, didn't you, for the booth? And so there was obviously Ryan, yourself, Bradley,
John Tungfa, and John Kindle, who kind of done a lot of integrations. You probably,
Yeah.
So I would say most of the interviews, Ryan was in a lot of demand for. I think he did a NASDAQ piece, so that was pretty cool. And then I know Bradley might have done a couple of interviews as well. I did one. So yeah, that was kind of it.
Okay, and what was the response to the rewards.com? Because we can only go off like the picture of the banner. So there's only like a couple pictures that I've seen on Twitter, but there's the banner and there's the CEO standing next to it, and it appears to be part of the Dash booth as well. So like, were people taking interest in that? Did they get any video interviews or anything like that, or was you busy doing your own thing?
So they were literally standing maybe 4 feet away from us. They basically joined us in our booth, and we presented them as a partner of Dash. Which was really cool. And yeah, people came by. They had their own T-shirts as well. So people came by and spoke to them, spoke to Dash. It was kind of one package. And yeah, it was a great experience having them there. And it was just an example of, a partnership that we can do and kind of co-market together. So
yeah, great. It was perfect timing because it was only very recently that we heard in the news that Coinbase was doing acquisitions and that they purchased earn.com, right? So that's been a big news saying, oh, you can earn cryptocurrency. Now, all of a sudden, rewards.com, which has a plethora of retail outlets for any interest you got, from makeup, computers, shopping, like to even Walmart, like, grocery shopping. So you can actually just earn Dash just by doing your online grocery shop, just buying what you typically would do. So I'm looking really forward to getting more information on this so we can get this out, because I think this is a great message. And I think we can now extend our reach by offering this utility to other people, because people are always interested in learning how to not only save, but earn money. So yeah, this is great.
No, and you make a good point in terms of, most people are putting their own money, let's say, into Dash when they're buying it. Here, you're actually earning it, right? So that's a great point, and that really was what was exciting about having it.
Right. So I don't know if you're going to be able to answer this. I know it's going to excite Brian. So you was in the Q1 2018 summary call that took place, was it last week or the week before? I think it was the Friday before.
Right.
And Ryan actually mentioned this, but as it's kind of financial, you may know something about this. So Ryan actually mentioned about Dash Ventures, a DAO-directed venture capital fund. Has he? I know this is still in the workings, but has he discussed this concept with you, or is this still is it still in its infancy?
So we are working on setting it up currently, but I would say it's a little past infancy. It's probably a toddler at this point.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Right. So we're really setting up the legal framework.
Yeah, because it's such a fascinating, but okay, just to be able to own assets, funds, and obviously not too much information went into it, but Brian's been quite vocal about this in the past, about actually the network, the master network, actually owning assets and getting a feedback into that. And It just creates a whole new dynamic and level to masternodes. Brian, you've had loads of ideas for the master network to purchase things back, whether it's coffee shops, ATMs, and all sorts of things, right?
Yeah, ATMs. That's what I forget who originally proposed that. Yeah, but the ATMs, that got me excited and thinking, wow, yeah, we could generate, masternode revenue. We could, incubate, start up these ATMs all over the world, and then take a percentage of the fee. And it doesn't just have to be Dash. We could, the ATMs could have fiat, Ether, whatever, and the fees would come back to the networks. Excellent. It's great.
Yeah, I wonder if this is part of like Evan's master plan, because those in the Dash community have been around for a few years. He did a video interview with Amanda way back in the day, and he mentioned things like Dash in the box. Because you remember Amanda like Dash in the box, and everyone was like, "What the hell's he talking about?" And he was just saying like, we have these Dash in the box things in shopping centers or other things, like it's like mini banks. And obviously in my head, I'm thinking ATMs, but I think it would be great to have an ATM on every university campus, everything else. But obviously there's a cost and expense to that, and with all the cryptocurrency ATMs, there are exchange fees, and I think typically they range from, well, the operator can set it to what they want, and I've heard that they tend to lean between like 10 to 15%, but kind people can actually like take it down to 1 or 2%, but I think typically like 10% seems to be like the going rate. So that would be phenomenal, not just from people think about like the kickbacks. It's not about that. It's about accessibility. And I always say that, Bitcoin had first mover advantage as the first cryptocurrency in 2009. We all know this.
Yeah.
Dash has the first mover advantage of being the first self-funding, self-governing, decentralized autonomous organization. And so we've got that first mover advantage of our treasury and our governance system. And I still don't think that's really come back round to us. So that positive feedback loop, I still think is to yield the results that it truly deserves. So it must be exciting for you because you see all these proposals, right? And this is a good segue because typically for masternode owners and proposal owners, it's been a bit stressful because sometimes traditionally core proposals used to come in at the end of the month,
right,
and that could like stress people out because typically there'll be quite big asks. And you've changed the game on this, so you've listened to the community and feedback. And I think it was last week you posted in the forum some forward guidance. Do you just want to talk about that?
Sure. Let me touch upon why I like Dash Ventures, just like what you mentioned. I think it really aligns like financial incentives. So, right now the way it works, let's say there's a startup and they ask for funding, it's literally a grant, right? They can use the money and then, they can grow their own business, contribute back to the Dash ecosystem. But going forward, we actually accelerated their progress, right? And then they can as a company, do things going forward. But now the masternode network doesn't get any value out of it except for whatever they got from that particular project, right? Now, with Dash Ventures, the masternode owners will now hold a piece of that business into the future, right? And, you own 10% of a business. If it starts growing, you get continual revenue streams back to the masternode owners. So it really aligns kind of, startups are risky by nature, right? So it aligns in terms of giving them the funding. In return, you get kind of equity type return going forward. So that's what really excites me about Dash Ventures. It's kind of, strengthening the masternode network and the network in general and contributing to further developing the Dash ecosystem.
It's huge. It hasn't got enough publicity. I guess once it starts rolling out and people start figuring out what it actually is going on, I think we should generate some more.
The juggernaut of the crypto world, still yet to be seen. Okay, so that was my fault because I kind of gave you a two-part question. So let's just roll it back a bit. So can you just talk about the forum post about the proposals, about the forward guidance?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I definitely believe in giving the community as much transparency as possible. So, 4 days ago, I posted on the forum, maybe it was 3 days ago, I posted on the forum kind of guidance. So what we did in May, and then guidance as to the next 2 months. So what we're going to do for the June 3rd cycle and the July 3rd cycle. Going forward, I'll probably post this on a quarterly basis with a view as to the next 3 months. I thought about, posting for the entire year, but, as you go each month forward due to the fluctuation in Dash and the change in priorities, that guidance kind of weakens with each consecutive month. And at some point it becomes meaningless. So I don't want to do that. But I do think it's very important, for the community to be aware as what is Dash Core Group going to request and how much space will there be in the ecosystem for all the other proposals, right? So we take up a disproportionate amount of the funds. And I think in return, we owe it back to the community to say, this is how many funds we'll be taking up over the next few months so that you can now better plan when you want to submit your proposals. So to me, it's only fair. When I was a community member, before I joined as a CFO, I kind of was used to be on the forum and read what people are doing. And, there are a number of avenues where you, as a community member, can get information, Dash Force News being a great one where, I'm a big fan of you guys. I've been listening to your episodes for a while now. But, I committed to myself, once I join Dash Core Group, I'll also be as transparent as possible to the community. As part of that, the post I did, I asked for feedback and suggestions and then did not realize that the comments had been turned off. So I now reposted the post yesterday as well under the announcements segment. So, if you have any comments, please go in there. Any feedback, any suggestions, anything that, you think might help us to plan things forward or just, how to think about finances. I definitely welcome any.
Well, I think you got it right. Just so in that post you mentioned June and July, which is perfect because really it's kind of to notify potential proposal owners, right? Because the 5 dash fees, quite a lot of dollar, we should say, or dinosaur paper money. So yeah, you have to be aware. So I think it's fine. And from what I've heard from master owners, that they're really happy about this. This is a really happy change. This is a move forward to make things easier. So it's a very welcomed approach. One thing that I would like to ask you, and I don't know what you can bring to this table, but based on your experience in the financial industry, one thing that I always look forward to in the quarter summary calls is typically used to be Ryan, but now it's yourself. When it comes to the metrics and the key performance indicators, I love seeing those charts and those numbers. And I wish we could get them on like a monthly basis, or because typically Ryan kind of looks at the price trend and like breaks it down like quarter by quarter from the beginning. So I'm guessing just from your experience researching investments and that sort of stuff, have you looked at that and thought, oh, it'd be really cool if we could do this? Like, are you into making charts and numbers and all that sort of stuff?
Oh, absolutely. Right. So you hit the nail on the head. Very interested in that. I like what we have in place now, and there have been a number of conversations about what other metrics should we follow, right? So we've, internally come up with a wish list of things we think are important as well, and community members would want to see. Now we're going out and saying, okay, where do we find some of this information, right? So there are a number of metrics, like how many transactions are instant transactions, right? How many are privates? And like all of that information is really interesting, right? And those would add to kind of the KPIs and tell a better story about what Dash is and how it's doing. For me, those charts really tell a story of this is what Dash wants to be. This is where we are right now, and this is how we're getting there. And you can kind of tell that through those charts and through those pictorials. And at this point, I think we're looking at redesigning it. Again, probably don't want to commit to any timelines or milestones, but if not next quarter, the quarter after, you'll probably see something revamped. And I think it'll be kind of a continuous gradual approach where a year from now, it will be drastically different than what you have now.
I was looking at Glenn's profile here on the Dash forum. I was wondering what his secret was. He looks great for someone who's 117 years old. Is that correct, Glenn?
Yeah, I think they might have reset my birth date.
Okay.
Wow. How you get on?
We set it to 1900, right? Is that all right? So 118 years. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to ask, like, how are you getting on with the core team? Because everyone's working remotely. Do you get on well with everyone? Is there any clashes or just
So I've been to Arizona a couple of times now. So once in early April, once in early May. And I actually found that to be really valuable. I'm in New York City right now, but I found it so valuable that I'm actually relocating to Arizona.
Yeah.
So I'm picking up and moving out there. I'll be based out of Arizona exactly a month from today. So June 17th, I'll be moving out there. And, you know, I'm joining, you know, Ryan's out there. We have our head of strategy out there. We have head of HR. We have a number of interns there as well. So, you know, we're starting to get kind of a little bit of critical mass, at least from the management layer in Arizona. And I think it's important, even though we're decentralized and work remotely, it's important to have that FaceTime with people, and, you know, to come into the office for me personally, like 2 or 3 times a week maybe, and just to, you know, have some meetings scheduled with the internal Dash core group. You know, maybe I'm old school in that sense, but sometimes FaceTime is important in terms of, you know, it might take an hour to do something in person as opposed to 2 or 3 hours over Hangout or whatever. It's physical presence to me is irreplaceable when it comes to communicating sometimes. But in terms of clashes, no clashes so far. Everyone has been really, really nice to the new guy.
What about characters? Who are your favorite characters in core? I know you can't pick favorites, but personality-wise?
Yeah.
Should I make it more interesting? Who would win in an arm wrestling match out of Ryan and Bradley?
That's interesting. That's a good one, actually.
Because you're an analyst, you got to think about. I see in your head, you're thinking about this. Ryan's quite tall.
Coming to the conclusion that since Ryan is taller,
he's got longer arms,
less leverage, right? Like shorter arms, right? Can't you bench press more?
Yeah. And Bradley's got the gift of the gab. He's like a young Han Solo, you know, he's ducking and diving, you know, he's making deals all over the place. I reckon you'd have a few tricks under the table. Yeah. Okay. Maybe we should move on from the arm wrestling. Okay, cool. So, see, when I think your position, I always think accounting and payroll. But do you ever do like any like research? Because you could be quite analytical, right? When you look at your investments and forecasting models, is that something you get into? Like, do you have a history in like technical analysis or anything like that?
Yeah, I do. Right now, I'm kind of doing what is it called, blocking and tackling, so to speak. So, you know, really building out a model around our budget and our forecast. And I think one of the things I might be posting in the near future, this isn't a promise because I haven't thought it through entirely, but I do want some feedback from the community as to whether the Dash core group should be building up a buffer in terms of funding or not, right? So what happens if, you know, the price of Dash goes down, I don't know, by $100 from where it is now, right? Suddenly Dash core group will be requesting more Dash and thus squeezing out some of the funding from the community on the proposals that do pass from Dash core group. So does it make sense, since I know what our compensation costs will be like over the next 3 to 6 months, does it make sense to kind of request some funding to cover that ahead of time and put it into fiat dollars and kind of hedge that liability? And I'm not entirely sold on whether it does make sense or it doesn't, but I do think it's something that should be analyzed and thought about in terms of some of the pros and cons, right? So that's something and again, I wouldn't never presume to post a proposal like that unilaterally. I would definitely want to like get feedback from the community and see what their thoughts are and see what, you know, the masternode owners say. And in general, just solicit as much feedback, because typically when you crowdsource feedback, a lot of good thoughts that you haven't thought of or that the team hasn't thought of come through. And I definitely like to consider things from all angles.
Yeah, this proposal cycle, it looks pretty slow. I wonder, are y'all thinking maybe the last week, if there's like a lot left, y'all may want to kind of grab some for that purpose? Or
so I wish that were the case, but for this particular one, we don't want to, specifically because of that tax liability that we are incurring, right? So let's say for every $1 that I request in this cycle that doesn't get spent, 40 cents of that roughly would probably go to, between the federal government and the state government. So it doesn't really make sense at that point to request funds that, will literally be going into a buffer for future months. But again, from July going forward, that's something that we're definitely considering.
Yeah, we may need to think about that, Mark, because I'd hate to leave money on the table and then next month come around and some people get bumped out, and we could actually help fund them and maybe have the community vote through Dash Boost or something. But yeah, I hate to leave money on the table since what's happened the last couple of months.
Yeah, I mean, well, last month was chock-a-block, wasn't it? 66 proposals, 40 got funded. At the moment, it seems like there's too much allocation, right? There's only so much can go around, and so you're right. It has been quiet. I was expecting some bigger proposals to launch, like Dash Nexus was absolutely fantastic. I hope they come back and they take feedback and they perhaps talk to another design house. So these people, for those that are watching, that don't go to the treasury, they were redesigning a new Dash Central, which the mock-ups and everything looked absolutely amazing. But they gave some, the general consensus of the comments was like, we love it, but can you come back and get some other prices from some other design houses and see if you can get a better price? Because the developer cost didn't match up. So, I mean, that was one of the biggest asks last month. Then we got Ben Swan, but he's back now. I see he submitted his proposal in yesterday, I think. So really, really interesting times. And this is why we're so lucky in Dash, because, it's cliche to say like every day feels like Christmas. But if you just look at last month, we've got 40 proposals. That's more than one proposal every day, right? So we're not going to run out of news on Dashforce News. But when you look at other cryptocurrencies, they don't have that. And they also don't have the same level of transparency from Core, which was why I was interested about the key performance indicators and how Glenn replied to that, because that's one of our strengths, our transparency, and our core team actually reporting. No one else has that. And I don't think we've fully got that message out there into the crypto sphere. So even just like if you put figures in just, a graphical thing and, just tweeted them out with how Dash is performing, like each week with a chart, people would share that around like crazy. Or, the number of instances sent, like if you dress it up nice, we can get that information out there, because I don't really see anyone else doing that. And I think people would be interested in that. I mean, they go to CoinMarketCap every day and refresh every F5 every 2 seconds, right? So I don't know. What do you think?
That absolutely makes sense to me. I think we need to make sure that whatever process we come to in terms of getting the KPIs and all that, it's good data and it's vetted, and then figure out a way to present it. And those things sometimes take a while. But I do know that we kind of on the core side have initiated looking at that. So that's interesting. Another thing I wanted to mention was actually we're looking at redesigning the escrow process. So, we're going to put in place a number of guidelines around escrow. We're going to cap the fiat guarantee, I believe. And to do an escrow going forward, we'll most likely include a fee there as well. And I think the fee makes sense on a number of levels. We've had a number of escrow requests that have come through to us where we enter into a contract with the other party, basically, Dash Corp. Mm-hmm. And in order to enter into a contract, we have to have our lawyers review it, right? So we have legal costs, we have management attention costs, where we're looking at it from a management perspective as well. There's one person within business development who's been doing an excellent job in working with these providers. And then there have been instances where, everything's set in motion and then the proposal never gets posted, right? So to kind of avoid situations like that, we do want to start charging for it. The other reason we want to start charging for it is I'm a big believer in the free market and competition. And as long as Dash Core Group isn't charging, what we're effectively doing is we're subsidizing the behavior. So we'll never have independent operators come in and offer escrow. And I also am a believer in specialization. Dash Core Group core business is not providing escrow. We're probably ill fit to do it compared to someone who professionally manages, right? So in the short term, we want to charge and provide guidelines. In the medium to long term, I would love for there to be an ecosystem where there are 2 or 3 escrow providers who manage this professionally and do it. And I had debates, both internally within Dash Core Group, and then, just talking to people within the industry about whether or not there is value in doing escrow in the short term for Dash Core Group. And I honestly believe there is value. You have a set of milestones that the person has to commit to completing before they get paid out. That's important, right? It holds you accountable for your actions. I've struggled a little bit with, since we are decentralized, to what degree should Dash Core Group guide those milestones, right? Obviously, once the milestones are set, we'll vet to make sure they're met. But, if a proposal owner comes with a number of milestones that are easy to achieve, should we be providing, guidance to them saying, no, they should be a little bit harder? Or should we let them post a proposal and that judgment call should be made by the master node, right? So there's a lot of issues there. But like I mentioned, in the short term, we're going to come up with some guidance. And then the medium to long term, we definitely would like an ecosystem to develop. So even if we don't see escrow providers coming into the ecosystem, I'm more of the, pull type or be proactive type camp, where I think it's important for, maybe Bradley as head of the business development goes out there and talks to some escrow services and, tells them, hey, there's this opportunity for revenue on your side. So, not necessarily wait for them to come, but maybe even, alert them and bring them in. So that's kind of what I wanted to touch on.
Is there any kind of estimates on like the fees? I guess it would depend on the scope of the proposal, but is there any kind of estimates on?
It's probably going to be somewhere in the $3,000 to $4,000 range. So somewhere around there. I think the minimum amount we spend on legal fees just to set these up is about $2,000 right there.
Wow.
So then, just the marginal cost of, having someone internally do it, review the milestones, and then, my time in terms of reviewing the proposal, sending out the payments and all that. Again, we probably are mispricing it slightly, but I think, we might be pricing it on the lower end, but I'd rather make that mistake than discourage people from seeking out escrow by setting the bar too high.
Yeah, I'm personally going to start demanding more of these larger proposals do the escrow, just because of what's taken place in the past and some of them not living up to what they say. Yeah, it's a very important function. Well, I know Glenn's got to go here pretty soon. I was going to throw a couple of things out. The Bloomberg, they have their new rating system, and Dash was in that. And then I was going to get Mark to talk a bit about the Paycent stuff, and then the Alt36 announcement.
Cool, man. Where do I start with that? So many options. Well, the Paycent thing is probably the one that's the. Well, I don't want to waste too much of Glenn's time. How much time have you got left? Because I can always talk about this after you go.
I'm actually going to jump right now, if that's okay with you guys. But listen, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. Again, big fan, really enjoyed listening to you guys. You got me up to speed on what Dash is in the early days. So that was awesome. And then seeing kind of a lot of the Dash Core Group personalities on here. On your show first, and now actually working with them was an interesting dynamic too. But again, thank you guys for having me on the podcast. It was really exciting, and I think we covered a lot of ground. And I had a really good time, and hopefully I'll get invited back at some point and we can talk some more.
Thanks for joining us.
I'll put it to the network to decide. Decentralize. It's consensus, right? Thanks, Glenn, man. Much appreciated. Thank you for coming on as well. And yeah, hopefully we have you back in soon. And enjoy your next call. You're a busy man.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Right, cheers. Thanks. Right.
Oh, that was good. I really like him. He's excellent.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, he's super, super friendly. And yeah, a great addition to the team. Right. So, well, you three things at me there. Paycent. So Paycent was quite interesting. So for those that have not seen, I did a video interview with Karen from BlockCypher, who's the head of growth, and BlockCypher helped with the integration with Dash into Paycent. And going into the interview, I downloaded the app the day I did the interview because just this week's just been manic. And like most people, I saw the press release and the article we did, and I thought, oh, it's another crypto debit card with the potential, of the e-wallet as well. But the big thing that really took me by surprise was that you can send Dash by mobile number to like 200 countries in the world. So you've got your contact list of friends and family around the world, and they don't have to have a Dash wallet, and you can just put in their mobile number and send them Dash. But I mean, that's only just one feature, but it was just really unique for me just to go into application and then see that there's a contact list option, because I think of evolution, because we always talk about the addresses and friends and stuff. So to see it in an app and you can go to contact list and add people I thought it was a really neat, cool feature.
Is it working now? Is it?
Well, truth be told, I've not actually sent Dash to anyone yet. I didn't go through the KYC process. I just wanted to check that the app worked and there was the features and functionality worked. And I'm so happy I did, because I found that merchants button, which is probably the only button on there that it works. But when you click it, it says coming soon. So when I spoke to Karen about that, she was like, oh yeah, there's something big coming down along the lines, but I can't talk about it yet. And I was just like, oh, that's great. I mean, that was the last thing I expected to hear, extra added value. So it's so much more than a debit card. And the other sneak peek thing was that she said that there's going to be promotions coming up that will be exclusive to Dash on the paysent.com service as well. But also the parent company, TechCent, they're also working on other things as well. Like she didn't go into much detail, but renting places and all sorts of stuff. What was the thing? Oh, and healthcare as well, paying for healthcare. Yeah. So this is separate to Patientory as well. I believe there's going to be another good update coming on that soon, because I think a lot of people have forgot about that, but there's something really cool coming up. And I'm excited to talk about that, but my wrist will get slapped if I talk about that now. Yeah, so that's amazing in itself. So lots of cool stuff. Alt36, yeah, you're right. We need to talk about Alt36. So Alt36 had big news this week. So the website launched, which was great. And then the following day, we had this news about their first big partnership, which was WebJoint. And they've got this whole system that does the accounting, literally everything. And they've got like 200 cannabis dispensaries in California, and they're looking to expand. So keep in mind, when we interviewed Ken Ramirez all the way back in January on dashforcenews.com, go check it out if you haven't. At that time when we interviewed him, Ken estimated like 4,000 merchants. And now this is an extra partnership that's now come into the mix. Like, it seems like Alt36 is on a mission, and I'm really looking forward to it. What was the third thing? I've got it
was a Bloomberg. They have some kind of Galaxy index. They're I think it's the second big one that we've been included on. Yeah.
Well, I've not checked that out. I have seen like is this the news that they were going to categorize everything and everything else? Yeah. I did see a few articles on it. It might have been on CoinDesk. I think I saw it on as well, because they've mentioned it into a few places. Very, very interesting.
China also had one I saw, and Dash wasn't in it, but it was kind of ridiculous. Some of the lists that they had some pretty weird coins in there. It didn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah. I mean, that actually reminds me of Paysent. That was the really interesting thing as well, was the transfer options on there. I mean, I expected to see, Visa, MasterCard, all that sort of stuff, right, to transfer funds. But then there was the additional options of, Union Pay, Alipay, WeChat, which are, traditionally get used in Southeast Asia. So they've obviously got a big market over there, because they've got an office in Dubai and Singapore, right? But there's another one as well, which is AXS, which I've never heard of before, but apparently that's kiosk based in Singapore, which is apparently a popular method. So it's like we're targeting like a new angle with this. So at first, when I learned about Paysent, I'm sure like most people, I was like, oh, great, another debit card. Like, what's going to happen with this one? But like, the more I learn about it, you see what I'm saying? It's just so much more than a debit card and payment system. So
yeah, well, I'm wondering what the fee structure is going to be. That's some of these things are kind of fee heavy.
0 transaction fees on Dash. The only thing that the question that I asked, because I did have to throw in a few difficult questions, was that the thing that threw me off when I was looking at the fees, that really stood out and slapped me in the face, was the fee for the physical card and delivery, which was $140, which seemed quite excessive to me. And I said, it seems a little expensive when you compare it to rivals like, 10x, WireX, and that sort of stuff. However, though, that's not static, and Karen is going to be providing an update. And I can tell you some of the questions that I asked, because I wanted to know if you're using the physical card, is it like a top-up card, or is the transaction from crypto to fiat automatic at the point of sale, right? So some of these questions I've asked, pretty hard questions, Karen's actually going to come back and record a video by herself interviewing TechCent, the people that run PayCent, and ask these issues. So if anyone, go check, please go watch that video. It's on the same YouTube channel. Go through all the questions. I've listed all the timestamps, so you can jump to the bit of interest for you. And if there's any questions on there that you want to ask and want to learn about it, please write them in the comment section, because I'm going to forward them to Karen and make sure all your questions are asked and answered in that interview. I want to give her as much notice as possible, and that will be recorded next week. So please do that.
Yeah, that was a great interview with her. I really like her, and I think the Block Cipher in general is such a great partnership. They've done so much, and without them, Dash would not. They've got the government energy stuff. Just so much. They're piling stuff up. Yeah. Yes.
Well, I was talking to Karen. We're going to see how the video goes next week before I make anything too public. But if everything goes well, Karen will be doing these videos herself. So, people are going to get a bit more variety. Obviously, Karen's making a lot of this stuff happen. And as I said, there's more stuff going on with Patientori, NREL, all kinds of stuff behind the closed doors. And yeah, I think to have her on and actually interview the people would be much better than myself interviewing Karen directly, because then she can give the perspective from the Block Cipher angle in terms of implementation and why they thought it was good for Dash, a good fit, and then also ask the hard questions as well. Have a person introduce them, because typically a lot of these partnerships and businesses are international, right?
Is that going to be posted? Is it going to be on Dashforce News? Or are we just going to mirror it, or she's going to go straight?
It's going to be Dashforce News. So it's extra free content for us, but it's for the community, right? So basically it works hand in hand, because as we've got that strategic business partnership where Dash has BlockCipher has a Dash grant scheme, which was being funded by Dash, right? So that's how we can get that extra leverage. BlockCipher support a lot of cryptocurrencies, but Dash gets preferential treatment because of this scheme, right? And this is why the PayCent card was quite interesting, because BlockCipher has been supporting them for a long time. They have Bitcoin, Litecoin, and Ethereum, but because of all the issues that we always know, expensive fees, the delays in time stuff, Dash is just a lot more attractive, right, when it comes to transactions and actually being used for payments. So of course, when Dash came along, they were like, yeah, this is great. We should implement this. It makes sense. When we look at what we're offering right now and what we could do, it's not just better for us, it's actually better for our customers. So it just makes sense.
Is PayCent, do they have a virtual card right now, or
yes.
Is that how that's working? Okay.
Yeah, so basically it's an app you download. It's a bit late over this. I know my camera keeps going out in focus. I've got to be careful. I'm going to open my application now, just to show you a few sneak peeks. I'll just make sure my mobile phone number's not on there. One sec. It's got the old fingerprint scanner as well to log in, which is pretty cool. Right, here we go. Let's close that down. Here we go. It's where the magic happens. Come on, is it going to work?
I was going to download it last night. I need to download it. Yeah, I need to mess with it.
Oh, this is a bit embarrassing.
You need a new phone, a faster phone.
Well, I've got S8 Plus, but it's all these wallet apps I keep installing. So I've got Edge on there. I love Edge, by the way. Big shout out to Ken Bozak. I know you'll probably watch this later. It's me, Boss Lady, as well. Hello, how are you doing? As well, I see you in the live chat. Ken Bozak this week at New York Consensus was an absolute boss. Hashtag Tip with Dash on Twitter. He was going around Times Square and actually setting people up with Dash wallets and tipping them with Dash, getting them set up. Taxi drivers, all sorts of stuff.
Cops, I think he tipped a cop like $100 or something.
Yeah, buskers, all sorts of stuff. And that's what we need, street team support. So if you're not following him on Twitter, please do go check that out.
Ken Bozak.
Ken Bozak, yeah, at Ken Bozak. Ken with 2 N's. Right, so I'm in the application now, and I don't know if that's going to work. Can you see that? So you can see Dash is the first crypto one that's mentioned, and I can switch from digital to US dollars. Yeah, and
Do they have other?
That's the merchant button I was talking about. When you click that merchant button, it brings up like the coming soon.
Do they have other cryptos, or is it exclusive to Dash? You're blurry.
Am I blurry? Sorry, one sec. Took the phone out. Sorry. Right. Yes. Yeah. They're in terms of cryptocurrencies. So they support like 200 countries. So in cryptocurrencies, it's Dash, Ethereum, Bitcoin, and Litecoin. And sorry about the focus, people. You can hear me. It's all you need, right?
What's the did they give an ETA on the physical card, or what's?
No, they didn't, which was a bit weird. I did ask about the US card. So basically, you can use the e-wallet app on the virtual card on the phone with USD Tap and Pay, like anywhere that accepts it. And sorry, trying to get the focus. But she, one of the questions I was asking her, she was saying like places in like Dubai and stuff. It's just cultural preference where they're still using the card like swipe thing. So yeah, the US question is another one as well that I want to get, because this is another reason why it's been unique, and it's actually like a pain point for Dash with these debit cards, particularly for the US. So yeah, so I'm hoping this is going to be the first of a lot of stuff, and it's the promotional stuff as well. So the only hesitation I had on the physical card was $140. However, over here in the UK, I don't know what it's like in America on a state-by-state basis, but in the UK, a lot of people are already using Apple Pay, Android Pay, NFC payments, like tap and pay on their phone anyway. So that's like pretty commonplace here anyway. So I don't need the physical card really. I guess maybe if I was traveling, I would need it. And also, you know, you can use the other advantage of having the ATM. The physical card is to use ATM and actually get cash withdrawals. So it depends what you want, the needs and wants you want. So.
Yeah, I was looking at the live chat here. I see Rodrigo Dash Digital. Shout out to him. He's been great. I love his interviews. He's on all these things and just does great interviews.
Yeah, man, it's been interesting. I mean, it's just been a roller coaster few weeks. Like Joel's been on the move a lot. As we said earlier, he's at the Voice and Exit Festival. I've forgotten to say so many. Like next month we've got the Pork Fest festival in June. Yeah, and Ben Swan again giving keynote talks. So literally every day, big stuff's been going on. This weekend I'm looking forward to. So those that are in the Discord Dash Chat channel would have seen me asking some questions, and I think I'm going to have hopefully line up some interesting interviews next week in terms of videos. There's going to be a market research report coming out on a financial platform on Dash that I've been helping assist them with, and I've been talking to Core as well to make sure we try and get the wording right. It was really nice that they reached out to us. I won't say any more on that now, but
we'll talk about it again. So rephrase that. What exactly, without saying too much?
Without saying, Brian, you're playing games with me because you have not even given me any alcohol yet. Right. Okay. So 2 martinis apparently Dash user 33 thinks you need to give me, and then I'll spill the beans. Right. So this week, actually by Twitter, I got contacted by I'll just say a large exchange, but they offer cryptocurrencies, forex, indices, everything else. And now that they're offering cryptocurrencies, they're doing reports for everyone, right? And they've only done like 4 so far. And now they're doing Dash. So they reached out to me to overlook what they've got, and yeah, and just make sure everything is in check and looks okay. And yeah, it looks really great. It's got some technical analysis in there. It just breaks down what Dash is. It's kind of like a profile. But the reason why it's so important, I think it's great, is that this particular platform has like 10 million user base. So yeah, and they're based in, well, I'll start saying too much, you'll probably guess who they are, but they're mainly based in Europe, but I think they're available in like 136 countries right now. But yeah, there's some news about them coming the US and some other things. That's why I'm hoping to get like an interview so we can get more, because I think generally the Dash community might like to know about it as an option. So this is great. So the reason why I'm saying this is that over the weekend, hopefully there'll be a cool report that will be coming out and we can start tweeting it out. And it might be a good thing for you to share with your friends and family that are new to Dash, that gives them that info. So, you know, they've got 3 or 4 page report that they can read through that just takes them from 0 to 100, that has the links to the resources for everything on Dash, from the Dash wiki, developer documentation, the Dash Discord, the news channel, the main website, you name it. Hopefully it will be on there.
And when is this going to drop? This weekend or sometime next week? Or
yeah, I've been told it's meant to be this weekend, and I'm hoping it might go via mail list as well. So there could be potentially a lot of eyes on this. So yes, that's why I got in contact with Core about it, and yeah, so it should be good. I mean, it's not super top secret, but it's just a really cool thing that's been happening this week.
Do we have any inside information on when 12.3 is going to be released? This roadmap has been promised. You hearing anything? Soonish?
Not that I can say officially. I have spoken to the core team quite a bit this week. One thing I will say is now, if you have a website or you want to do some of your own graphics, infographics, print things out, on the dash.org website, in the resources section, they've updated the graphics section to now have the new Dash logo. So you can now download that in a number of formats. So yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, they're supposed to have a whole style sheet or something. Do we know when that's going to drop?
Yeah, so they've got a link to the style sheet, but it kind of goes to the the PDF that we saw beforehand, where it kind of had like lots of mock-ups and things like that. So yeah, you go to dash.org and the resources section, you'll see the graphics. I believe they'll be updating it. I think there's still a lot more to come. But that is great to have those materials there now, especially for someone like myself that's doing a lot of images and things. Probably going to have to update the Dash swag as well and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, the new logo's growing on me. That wasn't my first choice. But yeah, I like the booth. It looked good. I like the colors. I didn't see any of the crazy pink stuff, I think that was that other one though, wasn't it? That was the Ogilvy.
Right? Yeah. It was kind of like a gradient kind of background. I mean, it's always down to interpretation, right? Different international communities always take the logo and make it their own, whether they do like a flag overlay or whatever. So I don't think it's ever going to be like a concrete, it's just like Dash Force News. If we take it, we can spin it or do whatever. Right now, for me, it's about experimentation. Some things work better on t-shirts and some things don't. But from what I saw from the Dash booth and in terms of like a background, yeah, it looks really great. And it's so similar to what we had before. I don't think it's going to cause any issues at all. Great. Cool. So, right.
Time to wrap up.
I think it is time to wrap up. Okay. Well, if you've been listening to this on one of our podcasts, forgive us for the temporary pauses, probably like 10 to 15 minutes ago. My camera went out of focus when I put my mobile phone up. So you would have missed that. All that juicy mobile app phone action. But right, so this was episode 52, the Dash Force Free Amigos podcast. 1 year, wowzers, that's a long time. Thank you to Glenn for coming on. Always good. What other Dash Core team member would you like to come on the Free Amigos podcast? Let us know in the comments below, and I'll try and make it happen. I know lots of people are going to put Evan. I'm trying. Like, I've tried to contact many things, but I will be persistent. I'll keep trying. But just like I was talking to Glenn, the core team's now got over 60 full-time people, as well as additional part-time people. So if there's anyone that's not been on that you'd like to see, please let us know. And also perhaps other people, maybe outside of the Dash thing, we can always bring in. Always good for talking about the wider cryptoverse. Let us know. Like, we're here to serve you. So yeah, it'd be great. So please like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed this, if you found it informative. And if you'd like to join me in a after party, you can join me on the Dash community Discord, which is dashchat.org. By default, you go to the Dash Talk channel and just say, hey, where's the after party? I can't guarantee you'll be able to get in there because there's only 10 spaces available, which is a limitation of Discord. So first come, first served. And yeah, so thank you for watching. I hope you have a great weekend and stay dashy, right?